Hey guys, I am back with another upload from actually UUPL, and I'm trying some different formats, getting a little inspiration, I admit, from Mick Megan, who's doing these really great videos on his channel. I'll probably link those, but I've been really appreciating his direction with replays and analysis of, or post-game analyses, rather. And while I'm not going to bite him outright, I am going to, you know, nab a couple ideas from that format, and do feel free to check out his stuff because he's talented player, sharp builder, all that. Very much worthwhile, though. You know, if you're into older gens and the like, which I think you should be. But that being said, this is my shoot. It's the third game. Alright, so it's third game played, so it is week 5, because I skipped the first two. And the reason that I didn't upload my game prior to this, the one versus Fenchinator, is actually in part to what I want to consider a bit of a, edit on my format for these kind of videos. And the rationale behind it is that, first of all, just to clarify, I did lose, but I feel like I would be much more open to losses generally, because I think that it's important to cover losses, because, nobody always wins, and as long as there's something to be obtained through, looking back at it and all that, I think that it's worth, checking out. However, in this case, I felt as though I just didn't prepare very well for the game. I had a good idea, I think, in Tangaberry Mew, which I didn't execute upon properly, I don't think, and for that reason, I just didn't end up having a game where I could set up a win condition well. So I felt like I wouldn't bother you with a game like that. It didn't feel right to me. And I hope you understand that, but, next time I take an L and I actually feel like I put the work in to make it a good game, I will certainly be showing that off. But for now, I have I was put in DPPUU, which was cool because I enjoy the tier quite a bit. I don't get a chance to play it that often, in comparison to my, BW playing, which I guess people know me for a little bit more. But it is a fun tier, and I wanted to mess around with a few things. And when looking through my opponent Fofus's replays, he tended to lean towards the bulkier good stuffs type teams, and frankly, that is like my favorite kind of playstyle to go against, because it just offers so many exploitative options for you as an offense builder. So that's what I decided to go for, and you're seeing my team as it was in preview. Well, not preview because that doesn't exist, but what I was trying to go for with this team was a focus on 2 sweepers here, Feraligatr and Mismagius, which I'll admit Mismagius was played with, and I considered Absol a bunch, because that helps, especially with the weather matchup, with which was kind of shaky. I could play around it, but it was definitely a little bit dubious against something like, for instance, a Kabutops would ravage me, but I took the chance, and, that's just kind of how you have to play some of these less bulky, full-on offenses. But in the end, I decided to go with this because it, first of all, had a good synergy with the remainder, and better synergy, rather. It alleviated some fight weaks a little bit, especially in the case of Toxicroak, which became problematic for its ability to A, avoid an RK from Dugtrio much better, and B, exploit Feraligatr directly, as well as not even struggle or not even get revenge killed consistently by Sceptile. So, that was kind of a big trouble on all fronts. Should I have went with Absol, and I ended up going with Mismagius. So, the basis of this team is more or less to try to facilitate sweeps from those, and I have a few outlets for doing that. but the basic gist of it was to keep momentum via offensive pressure and use Doug Trio to kind of hold together things and really, instigate those KOs that I'm trying to pick up through the team. And I used a few interesting sets that I will go into detail with as I go into the preview, so here we go. So, I wanted my lead to maintain versatility and also keep a few particular matchups in mind. So what I went with was this Uxie set, and it's a little bit unorthodox, as you can see. The spread I had something a little more convoluted with, but after a little bit of consideration, I decided to just go with Max to improve my handle on rock polish users to an extent. I had, like loose handles and play arounds versus most of them, but I decided that it was just a little too iffy in case, for instance, I locked a non-earthquake move with Doug Trio, or I locked anything on a Torterra, for instance. And this set in particular was looking to, gain momentum against Sash offensive leads, things like a Jinx or a Scyther or Moltres, any of those more offensive leads, which is actually specifically why I chose Hidden Power Rock, because it's able to apply chip to some really necessary Pokemon, including that Moltres, including that Scyther who doesn't get OHKO'd by Ice Beam, and Houndoom as well, because Houndoom is something of a problematic Pokemon to this team, as while I do have, for Alligator, I do have Doug Trio, it is perfectly capable of having outs with it under the right circumstances, so I decided to go with just a little extra reinforcement against that Pokemon, since it's very prominent now. And I don't know if anyone was to expect anything from me as a player just randomly going into the tier, was probably Spike Stack, and to that end I could see him using a Pursuit Houndoom really likely. So I went with a set like this. It also kind of works to keep momentum and play as something of a bait to facilitate an end game Smeagis, should I have gone from that. And of course the outlet that I was talking about that is aching to pick up all these KOs is of course the Choice Band Doug Trio, which my set is a little unorthodox, as you will see, mostly from the spread. But if you allow me to explain, I feel as though under most circumstances, Doug Trio is not being played in such a way that it needs max speed. Now, there are situations where teams are like so unquestionably like Sceptile weak, for instance, where you want to be able to outspeed, because usually they'll have, well, I wouldn't say usually, honestly they have HP Ice now more so than not. But you would like the ability to, speed tie something like that. But for the most part, I found that everything that you're conventionally trapping is below 95 base speed, and to that end, I decided to just go exactly to that, to the, just a point above. It hits the jump point, but it is, that all the same. And what the defense EVs allow me to do is survive a max attack Life Orb Houndoom Sucker Punch after Stealth Rock. And I understand that feels somewhat out there, but it is like really integral to an offensively applied Doug Trio, in my opinion. It also helps against things like Arcanine Sucker Punch and so forth. There are quite a few applications to it, and I feel that it is definitely something that's worth considering on a team a lot of the time, because again, its applications are mostly for these Pokemon. Any extra speed feels superfluous 9 times out of 10 from my experiences with it, so didn't end up showing its worth, unfortunately. Oh, it also helps with Toxicroak a lot. I did forget to mention that, but yeah. Doesn't show its worth a whole lot, but it is an option for sure. And then we have my Registeel, which is something of a, loose pivot, and I chose a slightly more aggressive set In this case, something that is a bit unconventional, but one that I like quite a lot, and that is Lung with attack EVs. And what this allows me to do is what this facilitates is twofold. It most importantly, I think, it allows me to keep that consistent pressure on ghosts, because there are a lot of really good ghosts out there, and something like a Wisp Rotom, a Wisp Mismagius, etc. will absolutely sit on a Registeel, whereas with Lumberry Shadowclaw and this attack investment, I am able to, punch through that Will-O-Wisp and 2-hit KO, which, great. Because, well, I mean, it depends on how they play, but conventionally they will try to throw something like a taunt first and, dodge the presumed status, but obviously the game kind of dictates as it goes. But what it also allows me to do is explode outright on or even Thunder Wave, and then later explode or set up Stealth Rock as the situation dictates, against something like a Powder Venusaur that might stay in, and both of those end up helping to facilitate things for my teammates. It can set up a Feraligatr to go in versus a balance. It can help a Mismagius dodge a speed tie, etc., etc., and it generally keeps momentum in the best way possible for this team. An explosion into a Dugtrio can also, facilitate a whole lot. It can explode on a Melodic, for instance, and then get trapped thereafter. And the attack EVs, as I mentioned, are primarily for, OHKOing a defensive Venusaur, 2-hit KOing a Ghost with Shadowclaw, etc. And my Feraligatr is pretty conventional SD set, nothing too special. I went with a Slight Tech because, and a lot of people were questioning this, but I was really paranoid about the Hail Stalled matchup. So I decided to go for this particular set, which allows me to superpower into a Walrein and keep my +2 attack and +2 defense, which A, helps me, not get revenged killed by a Hitmontop or something like that, and B, keeps my attack stat as, solid as possible for those kind of situations. Blocking the Hitmontop Intimidate is also like a minor plus, but it's mostly for that. And I will admit to that. I was kind of, otherwise I probably would have used like a Wakan or a Rindoberry, something of a bulkier set with Return, but as this situation dictated, I was a little bit worried about that. I decided to, spiff it up a bit. It doesn't directly affect Feraligatr's performance in a very significant way, but, it's just a slight adjustment in my building to accommodate something like that.
And then moving on to the final elements of the team, we have my Sceptile. Now, Sceptile was chosen over Venusaur primarily due to its ability to perform better versus offense, but the general purpose of this slot was to continue to hone in on that same offensive goal, that same overload-oriented mindset that I was getting with the remainder of the team. And another plus of using Sceptile over Venusaur, I was notably less weak to other grass types, including but not limited to Leafeon and Rock Polish Torterra, both of which were moderately threatening to my team as it was, but definitely more so in the case of Torterra, honestly, though. I decided on freaking Subbataya, which is a little bit unconventional, not the most common set in the world, obviously, but not particularly outlandish either. The reason I chose this over the more conventional Sceptile, Life Orb Sceptile, is due in no small part to A, the option of Endeavor, which I felt offered a broader scope option for facilitating Dugtrio traps and removing steals and fires alike, which helped my win conditions, particularly in the case of a Spadef Arcanine, which very threatening, just on a general level for teams such as this. Though we did have Doug Trio, he could always tech, he can make doubles, and he would obviously have to get a totally free turn to make that work, and it didn't really offer that without me sacking something, and steals like red steel in general. But it also allowed me to set up a better endgame against offense with this, because being able to, push myself into Overgrow and Pataya range from the get-go, just muscle through stuff. It's much easier to set up with a subset than it is with Life Orb, where you have to, bank on stuff like Focus Blast hits and dodging stuff like Scarf, Priority, etc. I think that the flexibility offered with a subbing set is just a little bit more tempting in this particular context. So I went with that set. And lastly, we rounded it off with the Miss Magus, the other sweeper of this team. Now, generally, you will be seeing a different coverage move, usually HP Ground, HP Fight, and Taunt over Will-O-Wisp from either myself or people in general, and I keep doing that. I keep making a mistake that it just will pop back down to it. My mistake. I'll get better with it in time. But, big old but, I felt like this team in particular offered a setting where this combination was a bit better. Not only with the Doug Trio offering the ability to remove stuff like the red steel where you would want to be, drastically shooting for that taunt, but also things like Drapion, Houndoom, etc. are all baited with the other moves in such a way that I can splurge for Thunderbolt to do things like pop off a fully healthy Moltres or a water type, and I can Wisp like a Pursuiter or something of that nature. I could also obviously just throw the Wisp at Registeel and switch out and be, safe in doing so. So that was kind of the mentality behind swapping out the set. I feel like in general, I would be in favor of like a taunting set over a Will-O-Wisp set, but in this context, I felt it works just a little bit better. So with that, I'm going to give it a real quick pause, and then I'll get back to the replay of this game. So yeah. Okay, so here we are, back in the game, and I am under the alt Come and Dine, whereas obviously Fofus is on his main, because nobody else is self-conscious on playing their main for me, but yeah. So I am going to be leading with Messeret, as I stated, and we see a Jinx. So Jinx, kind of not a lead I was anticipating going in, but judging from what he has shown in the past and what Jinx is capable of doing, I felt that my best play was simply U-turning out into Miss Magus. What this would cover, it would allow me to A, scout for anything a little bit fancy like a counter, which is not entirely common, but certainly an option on Jinx. Jinx, for what it's worth, it'll pretty much always be running Lovely Kiss, Ice Beam, but the rest is kind of a toss-up between, Focus Blast, Psychic, usually Psychic's common, but it's not a mandatory thing, Counter, and Fake Out. So I wanted to be wary of that option. I don't want to mess with anything like that. So that would be good against that. I would have the speed to outpace and the special bulk to avoid the KO from his Ice Beam in any significant way. And generally, from what he has shown in the past, I felt comfortable with the ability to either burn sleep turns against some of his more passive mons on the team, or simply freaking fodder off the Miss Magus there, because a lead Jinx, it's not going to have, sleeping potency in the mid game, so I don't have to, resort to a sleep fodder if I absolutely have to, but it is something that I will be doing in this short-term capacity. So as I said, throw the U-turn, go out to Miss Magus, and I get a little bit luckier than I would have liked, and I actually get to dodge that lovely kiss, which allows me to just pick it off with the Thunderbolt. Now, as I said, I feel like that's still my best play, and I stand by it going in now, but it is unfortunate. However, now this is where my Will-O-Wisp comes into play, because he gets wisped with his drop down as he goes for pursuit, and that's indicative of banded damage. I'm already aware that from a damage calc that it maxes out at 106 with a choice banded Jolly Pursuit. So even with a max roll on the preceding pursuit, I would be safe to plot here. This would cover A, him staying in, and B, him switching out to something that might be able to pivot on that Thunderbolt. So it also forces his hand on a revenge killing attempt. So that's my best play there. So I just plot, throw the Thunderbolt, kill him. So that particular variation on Miss Magus really pays off in a big way there. He goes into his Blaziken. I know it's going to be a choice given how he threw it out, but I have no reason to keep a Miss Magus like that. He actually locks Thunder Punch, and we were talking about this after the game in a little bit, but I understand his mentality behind it, because as it was his other coverage, he was running a mixed Scarf Blaziken with Fire Blast and Hidden Power Ice as his other moves. So his Hidden Power Ice was not guaranteed to kill, or not killing at all, I believe. I didn't ask his spread, but it might just not have been able to KO whatsoever, and Fire Blast had that miss rate. So I can understand his mentality behind it, but unfortunately, he was not anticipating the Dugtrio, so I just get to pick up that extra KO right off the bat, so things are looking real good for me, and especially for a potential end game from my Sceptile. So bearing that in mind, I don't want to reveal him now. I see a Torterra, and I'm freaking out because I think, oh, this is Rock Boss, I'm done. But fortunately, he is showing the Torterra, and I know that I revealed my Ice Beam through Jinx's Forewarn, which it doesn't show up there, but I do not want to risk anything there because Torterra is not something to be messed with. So, he just goes to his Registeel. I notice a lack of item, and it's interesting, but at the same time, though, looking at what he has left, Dugtrio is extremely expendable. If he wants to explode in anticipation of it, that is absolutely fine by me. I'm just going to hard switch right there and then. I'm not fearing anything, but he shows what's an awesome tech in Shuka Counter, so he really gets me there, and that really makes a lot of sense given the context of his team. I was really stoked on that. So now at this point, I'm just going to go to Gator. I'm trying to force his last, see what it is, and I see the Milotic. And I actually get to reveal the White Herb superpower. There's some confusion in the chat, but I really don't get anything out of it. However, this doesn't show an item either, so he is going all over the place with stuff. I Sword Stance just because it will, A, force him to reveal what he's got, or B, I just, make the aggressive push, and I have a even better shot of just throwing around attacks. However, he is faster, revealing that he is Life Orb Milotic. I decided to just play it safe, keep things going. I know I can take one, but I'm not going to risk it there because I feel my endgame can be consolidated otherwise. I just decide to make the safe move and go to Registeel on the Hidden Power, which wasn't sure if it was Electric or Grass. Now, however, knowing what he has been showing, I feel safe going into the Sceptile. And once again, I'm not going to mess around with any kind of, aggro play. This is my win condition, and I just want to play it safe. Throw the Hidden Power Ice, catch the Registeel, and at this point, I'm looking at it, and I realize I can just clean with Sceptile should I get the prior damage on freaking Registeel. So I just go for the explosion right here, and I am given the liberty to simply go into my Mesprit and throw around Psychics until I die, because his Torterra is going to go down, his Registeel is forced to take the chip I need of it, and his Milotic can't recover into me. So he's just going to go for that. I take one Iron Head and push him into, low range, and from that, it's just going to end with my Sceptile. I go for the freaking the substitute, safest play, eat my Pataya, guarantee my win. He goes for the explosion, hoping that I go for something outlandish, but there's no need, as I said. And I just finish off the Milotic with an energy ball. So I was giving some thought to how much the Lovely Kiss Miss came into play, and it certainly did. However, it's really hard to gauge those kinds of things when they occur that early into the game. I feel like I had a position to win because his team's hard answers to SD Gator were a little poor depending on how things needed to be played. I could have adjusted and gotten aggressive with the Gator because Life Orb Milotic, not a great check to the SD Gator. As I showed, Superpower did 45, so that's KO at +2 after a Life Orb hit. I would be thereafter put into Torrent range, and that's something that I can just play off of to no end. The Superpower also being able to, immediately pressure the Registeel also factors into everything. But notwithstanding, I really like this game. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I feel like there were a lot of interesting turns to be had of it. So I hope that you enjoyed as well, and I hope that you enjoyed this, I guess, more in-depth coverage on this game. I'm trying to get a little better at it. I'll, hone my formula into something a little more admissible in the future, I hope. But for the time being, do let me know what you thought or think, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible with some more, some more Pokemon content, guys. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and, have a good day.